the session now.
Yeah. Yes.
We are starting the session now. Good afternoon, everyone. Privacy is not something that I am merely entitled to. It's an absolute prerequisite. This is a quote by Marlon Brando which echoes in our society now more than ever. Right to privacy, which found its tenets in Mills on liberty and which has been inscribed in our constitutional spirit by the Puttaswamy judgment, is facing a serious breach in the times of COVID-19 pandemic. The medical data, which is considered to be the private data of patients, is now open in public space. The contact tracing mobile applications are accused of hacking private data of users. And one cannot ignore the implications of right to privacy, especially now in the times of pandemic. We welcome our esteemed guest from the field of constitutional law to discuss various ramifications of COVID-19 on privacy. We have amongst ourselves Professor K.C. Joshi, former Vice Chancellor of Kumaon University. We have Professor A.K. Awasthi sir from Lucknow University, and we have Mr. Avtar Singh Rawat, Senior Advocate from Nainital High Court. I would first request Professor K.C. Joshi sir to present his views on the given topic.
Namaskar to all the participants. Well, COVID-19 is infectious disease caused by the most recently discovered coronavirus with its outbreak in Wuhan, China in December 2019. Now, its origin, although it is said that it started from bats, but its origin has been doubted. Either it is made by man in laboratory or it was natural. If it was made in the laboratory, then it is apparently the violation of the established rules of international humanitarian law, particularly the 1972 Convention on biological matters. The Convention of 1972 was ratified by more than 188 states and has become binding since 1975. Whatever may be the origin, even if the doubt is because under the regulations of the World Health Organization, which is a specialized agency of the United Nations, responsible for the care of health care of the entire world globe. And under the rules, if any such virus is seen in any country, then within 24 hours, that is to be reported to the WHO. It was not done. Therefore, that is a question of doubt. Secondly, the country of origin has also diverted the world opinion because most of the countries, this virus has infected the entire world. And at the moment, there are 188 countries infected by the disease, causing lakhs of people. There are more than 5 lakhs people have died throughout the world. And most of the countries, in fact, all the countries of the world, they are infected. Now, the actions of the country from where it originated are also doubtful because the skirmishes on the borders of neighboring countries. Although some countries have claimed directly, for example, the President of the United States, that it originated from the lab of China. China refused for a long time, and now, as per press report, this World WHO instruction is expected to be there, but it is too late. Therefore, whatever may be the origin of this dangerous virus, it has vast ramifications. In fact, one study of the United Nations says it is not only the humanity has not only suffered, but it has suffered all round. In fact, social, economic crisis is there. Among them is we are concerned with the impact on right to privacy, which is a human right or fundamental rights. Now, this is a drastic, this is a very dangerous epidemic, and therefore, the pandemic is an epidemic when it spreads in more areas globally than it is designated as pandemic. And therefore, this dangerous disease is to be controlled by very swift actions. For that purpose, in India, although we have different problems because India is a country of 138, according to last this UN report. Our census says 130 crores, but it is 138 crores now. And this is vastly populated country, and we have a constitutional democracy. States have their own powers, union have their own powers, union territories have they are all. We have the democratic, this constitutional democracy. Therefore, it is very difficult this type of emergency to be tackled. For that purpose, Government of India response was required immediately, and for taking any action under the rule of law, a country governed by the rule of law and constitution, we require legal sanction. Therefore, the available law in the armory was the Epidemic Diseases Act 1897, a colonial law, but that law was passed. It contains only 4 sections, you all know it. But that was the only tool which could be justified in law. And therefore, this law was invoked, under which the directives were issued to different states by the Union of India through advisories were issued. And naturally, those instructions have affected the rights of the individuals. In fact, it is not only the rights of the individual, but in fact, the entire life of the country has been affected. Drastic laws are required to deal with drastic situations. And in India, this law was not supposed to be sufficient. Therefore, it was amended because there was no other way. Every executive action is required to be justified under law, and therefore, the President, under Article 123 of the Constitution, issued the ordinance having the power force of law, and then made some stringent provisions in law, because the paramilitary and medical and paramedical staff and all the staff associated with the control of this menace was attacked, humiliated, etc. That law was enacted, and this ordinance is a part of law because it is as good as law enacted by the Parliament, subject to certain limitations laid down in the Constitution. Now, the other response of the Government of India was the the Disaster Management Act 2005, because it is to manage the national calamities, and this law applies the union, the Home Ministry, and that power is delegated to the Health Ministry, so that the health advisories are being issued by the Union Health Ministry concerning this virus. Administrative action and political leadership also took immediate action. In fact, our Prime Minister has addressed the country several times in different ways, sometimes directly to the people of the country, sometimes the state chief minister, sometimes the constituents of his parliamentary this constituency. And therefore, in fact, he has been requesting with folded hands for what? For the control of this drastic disease. And in this case, what the government did was, immediately administrative action was taken. For example, you must have never heard about the Janata emergency. It was just about trial of, because this is a very vast country having a different type of climates and people and systems also, because we have in certain states the same party is not ruling. Although our constitution is one and all are governed by the same constitution. Therefore, we have heard about our constitution provides for 3 times emergency. One is national emergency, and the second is failure of the constitutional machinery in the state, and third was financial emergency. But this type of Janta emergency was for, and people followed it. Then the lockdown was imposed, and then it is now unlocking has started. Now, what are the impact? Because this administrative action and legal action, they are all taken under the law the existing, that is the 1897 law as amended under the ordinance, and that also refers to certain provisions of the Indian Penal Code. Now this impact is all around, this all are affecting all the persons, because it has not only affected individual health, because if somebody is ill, then he, his family, maybe his relatives are concerned. But this is a disease whereby all the persons, nobody knows when it will affect the other person. Therefore, shops were closed. Entire lockdown means entire country was locked virtually. Industry was locked, trade, commerce, everything was there, and the individual rights. So far the rights of the individual concerned, they are all rights were naturally affected, because drastic measures were required, and not only the social, economic, and cultural, including religious, because all the temples, churches, other religious institutions were closed, because the only safety at that time, because there is no approved medicine of this vaccine or any drug known even today for controlling this disease, and therefore only method was this. Man is a social animal, but here there was no keep distance. You cannot meet. If a person is affected, then of course you are secluded, quarantined, and then shops, restaurants, they were closed. Therefore everything, and you cannot go to the temple, you cannot have any gathering, number of things, everything, social, economic, cultural, all the lives were affected, trade, commerce, even the persons, unemployment generated, the people, most of the country, people in every country, including India, they earned in the day and then they eat in the night. But that was all stopped, although government provided, but it's very difficult to arrange food stalls for such a vast majority in spite of all these problems. Therefore, the impact is on every right, including fundamental rights. Right to privacy is also one of those rights, and we are concerned with the right to privacy. Now, the right to privacy, in fact, has now been recognized as a human rights. If you look to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 12 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, it is a declaration, and legally, technically, declaration is not binding. But by virtue of its acceptance, and it has acquired the what you call the norm of just cogence, or a customary binding rule of international law, and even our Supreme Court in a number of cases have referred the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Well, this is a declaration with the consensus adopted, and Article 12 deals with this right of privacy. And this right was subsequently, because Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a combination of social, this political and civil rights, and then economic, social, and cultural rights. And then two distinct conventions were adopted subsequently in 1966. One is the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which deals with the right to privacy. Now, these, difference between a convention and a declaration is that declaration has only moral value, whereas the convention is a treaty. It is binding on the states. After ratification, India has ratified it. Therefore, India is under obligation, international obligation to accept this treaty. Now, this right to privacy is contained in Article 17 of the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights, 1966. The question of, because the law has to change according to the society. According to historical school, law evolves with the society, and according to other schools, law changes with a law which doesn't change with a change in the society will not survive. Therefore, the new technique, new developments were there, and therefore the General Assembly of the United Nations took note of it, and this was recognized, including when this digital information was also included by the General Assembly on privacy in General Assembly Resolution of 18 December 2013, followed by the Human Rights Committee on Privacy. There is a committee. That Human Rights Committee is constituted under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and that committee is very effective committee constituted under the convention. This committee on privacy also issued certain directions which are also binding. And now this 2000 directions of Human Rights Committee were also required that in case of violation of privacy, state control is there allowed, but subject to clear legal norms. There should be clear law, and only under that law the restrictions can be imposed on right to privacy with the human rights, because no right is unlimited. Every right has limitations. Absolute, there cannot be any absolute right. Even those countries where this granted absolute rights, the courts evolved certain restrictions. For example, the Constitution of the United States in the first 10th Amendment, then this freedom of speech and expression is guaranteed. Freedom of speech and assembly is guaranteed. No restrictions. Like India, there is no restriction. But the Supreme Court has evolved, and those restrictions have been sometimes restricted, sometimes liberalized according to the needs by the Supreme Court of the United States. Now, this is so far the recognition of right to privacy as a human right, and human right means what we call fundamental rights. Fundamental rights, human rights, or natural rights are the same thing. Now, coming to India. Now, in India, there is no specific provision. For example, under Article 19, freedom of speech and expression is there, but there is no freedom of press explicitly mentioned in the Constitution. But that freedom of press has been read by the court in Article 19(1)(a). Similarly, right to privacy has not been mentioned in America, for example. There is no specific mention, but it has been read by the courts in the penumbras of the different constitutional amendments of the US Constitution. Now, in India, it was claimed, this right was claimed in Article 21 of the Constitution, which says that it deals with personal liberty, right to life and personal liberty. Now, this right was in the beginning restricted, but ultimately the position is, since 1991, this right has been accepted by the court. For example, the first case, there are a number of cases which other speakers may refer. This state of Maharashtra versus Madhulkar, in 1991 case of Supreme Court. You know, the police constable case was this misbehaved some woman, and then ultimately it was said that she is of easy virtue, therefore she has no right, nothing. But the Supreme Court said even a woman of easy virtue has a right of privacy. It was recognized as the case of state of Maharashtra versus Madhulkar. And then Rajgopal for the state of Tamil Nadu is a very important case. That case was in jail and he wrote something and it was not allowed. Ultimately went to the Supreme Court, and court in 1995 then accepted this is a right to privacy was accepted or read by the court under Article 21. Of course, the Article 21 has not been amended. It remains as it was when the Constitution was enforced in 1950. But this amendment is by virtue of the judicial construction, judicial interpretation. Now, thereafter, you know, there is no problem now. There is no question of any doubt. The 9 judges bench of the Supreme Court in Aadhaar case, Justice Puttaswamy case. In that case, the 9 judges, of course, there are some concurring judgments. Some, you know, our judges are very respectful. Judges are now they are writing theses in the judgment. They have reached same conclusion, but there are some concurring judgments, separate judgments. Some judgments are written one person for 4. Now it is 9 judges unanimous on the point that there is a right to privacy in the Constitution, and this right is a fundamental right. Now, also this view has been endorsed by the Supreme Court Constitutional Bench in a judgment on November 2019. And that is the case, it was concerning three cases were there. This concerned basically right information case was moved by this Subhash Chandra Agrawal. And this case, one case that judges' assets were are required to be declared, and they said, High Court judges said we have declared and we have submitted to the Justice of India, and other judges said also we have also submitted. And then when the informants were required, then it was said that no, it is a fiduciary relation, and under the RTI Act, this cannot be disclosed. And then ultimately a writ was filed in the Delhi Supreme Court, and Chief Justice Shah, it is led by Justice Shah, this full bench of the Delhi High Court in 2000 declared that it is not fiduciary, it should be disclosed. And ultimately the Supreme Court, this public relations officer went an appeal, and after 10 years it has been decided now. And the court has said there is nothing, there is no privacy in declaration of the assets of the judges of the constitutional courts. This is case of decided on November 2019 Constitutional Bench. Now, the main question, has been that, of course, when power is given, power, this corrupts. It is said power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. When executive power, you have to give power, and you cannot see there are thousands of persons, district magistrates, police officers, medical officers, number of persons, and the other person designated. Now they have to be authorized to deal with the menace, and therefore, as human nature is, some the abuse of power can be there and has been there, and particularly the data, the personal information relating to health, etc. This has been the question again, and of course it has affected also a person who is cured of this coronavirus, if comes with a family, then in certain cases is refused admissions. Therefore, this some sort of ban, and therefore the release of personal data, particularly medical personal data, that has been the question where the right of privacy has been, in this case, challenged. But here again, this personal data privacy is this cannot be, as I told you, the Supreme Court has also held in this privacy case or this Aadhaar case or Puttaswamy case that right to privacy is like any other fundamental right, is not absolute, it is subject to reasonable restrictions. And therefore, the court has personally dealt with this question of personal biodata, personal data of the persons, including medical data. They said, all right, this can be, the interference can be there. Number one, there should be a law. Without law, you cannot interfere, deal with the personal data. For other case, with the law question, and therefore a law must be there. And second is, it cannot be used arbitrarily. Your arbitrary power, for example, number of cases are there, but the Supreme Court has said that any action of arbitrariness is against the rule of law. Therefore, it cannot be arbitrarily used. And third is, there should be a doctrine of proportionality evolved by our constitutional courts. That is, when you are using that data, it should be proportionate to the object to be achieved by it. Therefore, the personal data is also can be used subject to these restrictions. Now, the question is how to control. Constitution is there, laws are there. We have the independent judiciary having the power of judicial review, which the court has declared as a basic feature of the Constitution, and that independence has, even though the Constitutional Amendment recently had 99 was struck down by the court. And therefore, we have two things, judicial review, and second is the check by the legislation. They are law and court. There are two checks which can prevent the use of arbitrary power, including on the right of privacy. But to my mind, these two things are not always necessarily sufficient. We have example in our own this under the Constitution. If you recollect, 39th amendment of the Constitution was made and passed within 4 days. Is it possible? You know, when the Constitution required the ratification by the majority of the states also. It so happened, it is well known that when Indira Gandhi was uprooted by the Allahabad High Court Judge Jamal Sinha, said the correct practices are there, and then ultimately she was disqualified, she was losing the premiership, and then appeal was made. Justice Krishna Iyer granted a temporary stay, and the case was heard within next Monday. And then in between, the Constitution was amended whereby the immunity was granted to Prime Minister and some other constitutional authorities, and then bill was introduced in the Lok Sabha. In one day, it was discussed, passed, and communicated to the our house, the Rajya Sabha. Similarly, there's all these stages passed in the Rajya Sabha also, and from there is received the assent of the president. Then it was sent to the states, and 17 states were required for its ratification, and it was done in one day. And on Sunday, a gazette notification was issued, and then this instruction, the appeal to Supreme Court began instructions, and what happened there after the emergency of 1975-77 is well known, and the Constitution was destroyed, what you call defaced, and lawyer, a jurist has said that no constitutional guarantee can assure any right of the person. Democracy cannot be saved only by constitutional provision. That is one example. And then if you go to the court, because the court constitution was there, Article 49, Justice Agati and Justice Chandrachud, they were all the judges, 5 judges, Constitution, the bench, A.D.M. Jabalpur versus Shivkant Shukla, now of course overruled by the court now. What happened? The 4 judges, only Justice Khanna was there who said, all right, this, you're right, the rule of law does not seize when emergency is there. Article 21, the rule of law is there. He was only decision judge and suffered, and it was at the cost of his chief justiceship. But all the 4 judges agreed that all right, what the executive did was all right. So therefore, the courts or the legislature may not necessarily be the safeguard. It is the alert public opinion. In fact, you know, going back few time, going back, you know, if you look to the emergence of right to privacy, how it happened? The right to privacy, it was in fact Judge Kule. He had let right to be let alone. He said he has a right on law courts also, he judge there. And then in the United States, when this press, then press was, there was the photography was the instant photography was there, and this printing of press was acquiring, gaining importance. At that time, the photographs of, because of this right to privacy in the case of a libel or a slander, law plot was there in common law. Even in common law, it is said that a person's house is his castle. Even his own servant cannot enter it without the permission of the this master. But instead of that, they said, no, we need a right to privacy, because some person, you know, this Warren and Brandeis, they wrote an article in the Harvard Law Review. And that was virtually, it is said that Justice Brandeis, he was not a judge at that time, he was an advocate, the firm was of these 2 persons. He wrote the article virtually, our name was of 2 persons, wherein he pleaded and said, all right, our this, you know, private lives are now, family lives are affected, and therefore there should be a clear law, right to privacy should be there. That is said to be the origin of the right to privacy. Now, it, of course, sometimes there are some most active judges who are concerned with the social issues, and Justice Brandeis, when he became associate judge of the Supreme Court, in the Hempstead case also, this wiretapping case, he was the lone dissenter judge. He said, no, this right to privacy is right. Ultimately, it has been accepted and read in the Constitution of the United States. Okay, you want to say? So thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Kishtush sir, for letting us, giving us so much information about this right to privacy and how it affects our how it is affected in the times of pandemic. Now I would request Professor Dr. A.K. Awasthi sir to join this session and give his views on this particular topic. Thank you. Professor A.K. Awasthi sir, are you able to hear my voice?
Listen me? Can you listen me?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Abhimanyu. In fact, it was a pleasure to hear
Yes, sir.
Professor K.C. Joshi, though he has not been my teacher as such, but whenever I get an opportunity, I feel a great privilege, rather lucky, to listen to Professor Joshi. Is such a clear concept of constitutional law, of international law, of administrative law, that a person who himself has been a teacher for so many years learned so many things from Professor K.C. Joshi. Really, I'm really thankful to all of you that you invited me along with Professor Joshi, although I don't stand anywhere so far as Professor Joshi's stature is concerned. I have just seen the face of Mr. Avatar Singh Rawat, who is senior advocate practicing at Uttarakhand High Court. I don't know whether Dr. C.S. Joshi, Honorable Chairman, is here or not, he is listening or not. The ramification of COVID-19 pandemic on privacy is the topic of this webinar organized by Vasudev College of Law, Haldwani. Really, it's a topic which concerns each and every one of us. First, the meaning of word ramification. If you go and see any dictionary, you will see the meaning of ramification is one of the many complicated or unexpected results of an action or decision. Complicated or unexpected results. Such outcomes, such consequences, such after effects, such end results, which cannot be easily foreseen. Ramification of COVID-19 pandemic, that too on right to privacy, is a very important subject for us, for we who are constitutional law students, who are administrative law students, who are analyzing the political theories of the governments in power. As Professor Joshi has rightly said, there's no doubt about that these freedoms, these fundamental freedoms, are very important for the working of a democracy. 1.3 billion people, one virus. How much privacy? What is the extent of privacy? Professor Joshi has given us judgments of Supreme Court, of American Supreme Court, in which this right was evolved. Whether it is Rajgopalan's case, whether it is Subhash Chandra Agarwal's case, whether it is Madhulkar case, right to privacy was not strictly mentioned in the Constitution as such, but it was evolved by our Supreme Court. There are some other judgments also, just for the sake of a brief mention. These privacy cases which relate with the right to privacy concerning health. The Nina Mathur's case, a Supreme Court judgment, in which Supreme Court has quashed, has declared unconstitutional the provision in the Life Insurance Corporation form, which asks any lady insurer to declare the date of loss period. Supreme Court has held that a lady cannot be compelled to tell the date of her loss period. There is once again case of that Air India, Nargis Mirza, in which Supreme Court has held the right to motherhood is the most precious right, is the most fundamental right of any woman. American Supreme Court had held in 1973 that right to abortion, once again, a right of privacy. Very recently, Supreme Court even has gone to extent of declaring Section 377 IPC to be unconstitutional and held that it is the right to privacy of two consenting adults to be engaged in any such affair they like. The right to privacy, so far as health is concerned, is very important. This pandemic is an unprecedented event. Once in 100 years, this appears. A person of our generation even do not know the history of those pandemics or epidemics, but it has come. It has come in the times of growing importance of human rights, growing importance of democracy, growing importance of rule of law, providing all the safeguards to each and every individual, as Professor Joshi has said, that we have fundamental rights, but these fundamental rights have been incorporated at the behest of various international conventions, international declarations. And that is why the question before Supreme Court or any High Court, whether this right is included in fundamental right or in human rights, these international conventions are taken into consideration, they are discussed. Very recently, you have seen the newspaper reports, you have seen the TV reports, media reports, that information on COVID patients and those who are placed in quarantine have been put in public domain. Karnataka, state of Karnataka, published a list of people who are quarantined. Such disclosure invites dangers. Several doctors, several nurses have been evicted by their landlords. In fact, it is considered as a stigma. It's nothing. COVID-19 is otherwise nothing but a severe but a very grave form of cold and cough. Very grave. Sometimes it results into death also. It has provides a social stigma, and that is why people are harassed. In Mohali, what happened? Those persons who had come from abroad, they had to file a self-declaration report form. They had to fill a self-declaration form. And 300 people in good faith had provided various information in that self-declaration form. Every international passenger is required to fill that form. But what happened? These information were put on public domain, and these persons who are coming from abroad were denied even residential permission. In some cases, they were denied. Public health surveillance programs are there. However well intended they may be, however, they are going to affect liberty, equality, and privacy. As Professor Joshi was telling us, we have Puttaswamy judgment, and in Puttaswamy judgment, Supreme Court has held that right to privacy is a substantial right and subject only to reasonable restrictions. Reasonable restrictions which are provided in Article 19, reasonable restrictions which are provided elsewhere also. In England, privacy is viewed as competing right, not absolute right, competing right with other rights. India projected as a substantive right. Of course, with certain reasonable restrictions, but it is a substantive right. It's not a competing right. In America, it is considered to be an absolute right. In these circumstances, in a democracy which is governed by a written constitution, what is the extent of this right to privacy, even in the period of pandemic like COVID-19? As you know, Hepatitis Act is there, National Disaster Management Act is there, Information Technology Act is there. There are various provisions in the IPC, in certain other rights also, where privacy has been held as very important human right. In Mossadeq case, Supreme Court held that names of rape victims should not be disclosed to anybody. And not only in rape, if adultery, a divorce proceeding is going on the ground of adultery, then the identity of that child cannot be determined through the process of DNA test. It's a right which is safeguarded by our courts in letter and spirit. Now we come to certain cases, some cases in which this right to privacy is directly in
the draft guideline, and this is available in internet. Now let me come.
Can you listen me? Should I continue?
Yes, sir. You should continue, sir.
Okay.
There was a little bit of disruption, but now you continue.
Balu Gopal Krishnan versus State of Kerala, in which the state of Kerala was involved because it had given blanket power to one American organization, Sprinkler. It has given a contract to this organization to process and analyze data with regard to patients and those who are vulnerable or susceptible to COVID-19. State of Kerala, as you know, is the most successful state so far as COVID is concerned. It has given a contract to this organization, and for our purpose, the point is the contract provided that if there is any dispute, the New York court will be the right forum. Indian courts were not the right forum. So there was number of writs filed in the criminal. Is offensive of Article 299 of Indian Constitution because it's not providing any safeguard. If this organization misuses or abuses the information which comes in.
Avasti sir, your mic has been turned off. Sir, kindly put it on. Sir, your mic has been put on. Now you are audible, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Kerala High Court was concerned with this, and only after assurance from the state of Kerala and from Sprinkler, they gave a series of direction in that judgment and provided various safeguards. In fact, data in public domain can be of commercial value other than security concern. Healthcare personals, pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies can use or misuse those data. For that reason, it becomes very important, very imperative. The location, the whereabouts, tracking their exposure. What happened very recently, you must have seen in the newspaper that various airlines and railway reservations information were collated to find out from where this person is coming or from where or where this person is going. Is it possible to balance right to privacy and public interest? Is the moot question for our discussion this evening. I would like to remind one very important Supreme Court judgment, Mr. X versus Z Hospital, probably sometime in 1997. I don't remember exactly the year. What happened in this case? A doctor was suffering from AIDS, and this information could reach the girl from which he was going to marry very shortly. This girl naturally refused to marry this doctor. Then this doctor filed a suit against that pathology that my right to privacy has been violated, and therefore pathology center is liable to pay the damages. And in this case, Supreme Court had held that if there is conflict between fundamental rights, then that fundamental right will prevail, which has public interest. In fact, in this case, Supreme Court held that no doubt right to privacy, right not to be disclosed that this doctor is suffering from any disease, is his right to secrecy, right to privacy. But at the same time, girl has a right to know that his going to be husband, whether he is suffering from any such deadly disease. And Supreme Court held that if there is conflict between two fundamental rights, then that fundamental right will prevail which has public good or which has public interest behind it. In these times of pandemic, various measures have been taken by various state governments, and not only various state governments, various countries have also taken such drastic measures. China was the first country to use sophisticated surveillance practices such as accessing and monitoring citizens' usage of social media and communication applications, and usage of drone equipped with facial recognition technology in order to monitor the movement of its citizens and to track suspected patients in real time. Russia, thousands of CCTV cameras in urban areas enabled with facial technology originally developed for counter-terrorism purposes to enforce the lockdown. Hong Kong, wristbands connected to a mobile application. Wristbands connected to a mobile application. UK, Germany, Italy, several countries have used such surveillance methods. In India, when central government made compulsory using Aarogya Setu for contact tracing in India, it was opposed. Not only it was opposed, and it was filed before the Supreme Court also, that Aarogya Setu is directly violating our right to privacy. Aarogya Setu, if you have installed it, I have installed it in my smartphone, is nothing but the information which are given by you. They are stored in that. And if you happen to meet a person who is suspected of COVID, then it will give an alarm. As such, it's not violating. But there was one full page article in Hindu the next day, and they provided the various implications, various consequences, various ramifications which may occur if these informations fall with wrong hands. And this is the reason that as Professor Joshi was saying, Aarogya Setu case, Supreme Court provided some guidelines how to use it. And now government has also taken note of it and has changed, has allowed some leniency so far as these information are concerned. There are a number of other cases which have been filed in Supreme Court or various high courts. In a case, Telangana High Court direction to conduct mandatory COVID-19 testing of dead bodies was stayed by Supreme Court. Supreme Court has held that non-testing of patient is not a solution to the problem, and therefore Supreme Court has directed both central government and state government to increase testing. Supreme Court was requested to take suo motu action against reported incidents of manhandling of COVID patients and dead bodies. Only 2 or 3 days back, we have seen that certain dead bodies of COVID patients were thrown in the pit. Later on, the government apologized for that. Earlier in Maharashtra also, we had seen in a news report that dead bodies were being kept on the beds along with the COVID patients. These are the cases which go to show that what is the relationship of COVID patient, of COVID epidemic, vis-a-vis our fundamental right to privacy. Here comes another very interesting question. In fact, this case decides and determines the relationship between these two, K. Narayanan versus Government of Tamil Nadu, in which there was a writ before the High Court that identity of COVID-19 affected persons should be placed on government websites to enable others to quarantine themselves who have contact or believed to have contacted with them. There was a prayer by an individual. On the other hand, people always say that if this is done, this is a violation of our right to privacy. We have the National Health Bill 2009, though it has not been converted into act, but this act provides a very good insight. This provides obligation of government in relation to health. Chapter 3, which is very important and for us for this webinar, collection of individual rights in relation to health. And in this, 25 rights have been incorporated. And the important among them is a right to health, right to access, use, and enjoy, right against discrimination, right to dignity, right of participation, right to justice, right to information, right to medical records and data, right to confidentiality and information disclosure. I have mentioned only few of them. Right to confidentiality and information disclosure is one of the rights incorporated in the National Health Bill 2009. This National Health Bill, if you go to the beginning of this bill, you will find that it has been a bill to provide for protecting and fulfillment of right in relation to health and well-being, for achieving the goal of health for all. It is based on Article 14, 15, 21, 17, 23, 24, 38, and 39. Various international conventions, various Supreme Court decisions. And then what should be there? The dichotomy between public health preservation and protection of citizens' fundamental right to privacy is a serious concern and cannot be ignored. Tracking and surveillance in the present situation does have a compelling state interest. However, for the purpose of constitutional sanctity, it is imperative to enforce safeguards as well. Public health interests may be legitimate reason to increase monitoring of individuals, but monitoring by government authorities must be If caution is not exercised in times of urgency, we may be successful in containing the spread of virus, but may irreparably damage the constitutional fabric. It can be tempting to argue that the government's power are limitless, that if the government so chooses, fundamental rights can be suspended at will. The pandemic, an existential threat, and the permanent paramount need to save lives takes precedence over all other interests. Appealing though it is, this argument is not only wrong, but also dangerous. For precisely the same reason that Justice Khanna outlined, as Professor Joshi said, in ADM Jabalpur case, when faced with crisis, governments acting for all the right reason are invariably prone to overreach. Paying close attention to civil rights, therefore, becomes critical, not to impede the government effort, but to ensure that rights, fragile at the best of times and particularly vulnerable in a crisis, are not permanently effaced. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Avasthi. This was a very informative session. And now I would request Mr. A.S. Rawat sir to give us some more practical implications of this right to privacy and how it works in the courts and structures of justice.
Thank you very much. First of all, good evening to all panelists. Also, the organizer of this webinar today, today is the evening. Now, all panelists might have heard the illustrious speeches given by Professor K.C. Joshi and Professor Avasthi. There is hardly much left for me now to comment on. But the fact remains that the issue at hand today is an issue, as the Professor Avasthi has rightly put it, the ramification in various ways, the issue of this pandemic with regard to the privacy is concerned. All the earlier speakers have pointed out the ramification otherwise is very dangerous if it is not monitored in a proper perspective. But now the fact remains that we are in a modern world today. This is unprecedented events, the epidemic, which has come, everybody knows, after almost more than 100 years. 1918 was the year when this was observed as a Spanish influenza. But at that particular point of time, we were not living in a world of digitization. There was no the panic, the kind of panic today we are having, that we live in a commercial world. The world economic upsurge is there, moral values have gone down. In this present day scenario, we have to see that our data, which is otherwise under the garb of this pandemic, is being collected by the government, though of course the government has got a very solemn obligation to protect its citizen from a disease like this. And they have to collect, of course, in order to prevent the human miseries. They have to collect data. But the fact remains that they may be requiring some data. But the data which the government requires in order to fight against the COVID must be handled with due care. It should not be under the garb of this handling of a particular situation. You can't give a go by sacrifice to the inherent right. This right of natural right, this is a right of privacy which we are discussing today, is an inherent right of a human being. The moment we came in the society as a human being, right from that day, this right is already there along with our birth. But because of in a social setup when so many other events also takes place along with, then there is a question always that how to balance those rights. Which right is more the essential than the another one? Comparative. This is a competing rights. So therefore, as the professors, both the professors, they have already said, the genesis of this right, as I've said, is inherent. Inherently we have got this. This is a natural right. With our birth, we get this right. But then in society, these issues came up time and again. As the professors have rightly put it, whether it is Article 20 of Human Declaration, there was very conventions which converted into treaties among the nations. This issue was very much alive. It has been discussed, codified as a moral instruction or as law as such. In a different country, they have got it codified it in different manners. Like European Union, they have got General Data Protection Act. In another country, there is something which is called Health Insurance Portability and Protectability Act. Here in our country, so far as till date, we have not a legal backing of how to protect those rights. Though this issue has been raised time and again by various persons, as the speakers have already pointed out, after independence also, our country, this right immediately after the independence time, and again this issue was been raised. And not only raised, it was considered by the apex court in MP Sharma versus Union of India. 8 judges of the Supreme Court has considered this valuable right to privacy. In Kharak Singh versus State of UP in 1962, long back, 6 judges of the MP Singh was 8 judges, Kharak Singh was 6 judges. They have considered, and after having considered and tried to balance it, they have said right to privacy is not a right which is akin to fundamental rights. So that the right to privacy was not given a status of a fundamental right, as you know, all of you know, that once it comes into a category of a fundamental right, then that fundamental right is unreachable, it cannot be infringed by any law. But here, this question, right of privacy, in order to balance when, like the scenario we are in today, when this is a pandemic world over, some situation has all of a sudden has come up. And one way, this is an important fundamental right to privacy, it has to be protected. On the other hand, there are hundreds of life of human being is to be protected. So in those occasions, there are some leeways laid out that how to balance these two rights. As my previous speaker have already said, till 1962, this right was not given a status of a fundamental right as such. But here, as this is a very famous judgment, that's a 9 judges bench, because the occasion 9 judges bench. Why this 9 judges bench? Because 8 judges, MP Singh was already there in 1952. 6 judges, that Kharak Singh was already there, is rejecting that to be a fundamental right. So therefore, the occasion was the 3 judges bench. They referred this matter to larger constitution bench of 9 judges. But those 9 judges also, what they have done was, ultimately 9 judges also, they wrote a separate judgment. Justice Chandrachud for himself for another 3 judges, 4 judges, they wrote a judgment. Another 6 judges, 5 judges, they wrote a separate judgment. But in the separate judgment, as the precedent we start decisis is a concept in common law that we are bound by the larger bench judgment. And here the question is larger judgment would be the one judgment which is signed by majority judges. Out of 9, 5 should have signed it. But here what had happened was the 5 judges, they wrote that different opinion. Then it was called out. Ultimately, the right to privacy, they say, all judges in that judgment, they say that right to privacy is an integral component of fundamental right. It's an important component of fundamental right, but it's a constitutional right, not the fundamental right. But it emanates from Article 14 to 18, 19(1)(a), 91(d). These are right to freedom of speech, right to freedom of movement, and then finally it comes under the right to life and liberty under Article 21 of the Constitution of India. So that is a situation after this judgment. Prior to this, there was no fix. In this judgment, Puttu Swami, as the Professor Avasthi had rightly put it, that reasonable restriction. In fact, it's not reasonable restriction as such, but what they have said, proportionality and disproportionality. The concept is proportionality of the damage. Now, what had happened in our case, now this pandemic, the world over, which has the fatalities in large number, the government is desperate. In that scenario, government has no other option to collect the data so that contact tracing and the person who is affected by this the disease can be spotted out and other person can be protected from his contact. Though the law, there is no codified law as such which prevents from government not to do it. There was no law, though there was an effort. The government was also sincere about how to proceed, about how to protect this valuable right to privacy. Hare Krishna committee, a committee was constituted to submit a report to the parliament saying that the right to privacy is a very valuable right. It has to be protected in all cases. But then the Krishna committee report, it was simply a bill, cannot be converted into act. And Krishna committee, though they have put certain rider, but there also they have said that proportionality is the concept. The Krishna committee also, they said, it must not be disproportionate. You can't infringe someone's right to privacy disproportionately. And disproportionately in the sense means if there is some emergency of that sort that you have to collect, there's no other way around, other option but to collect the data from your citizen in order to do larger good for the citizen itself. So therefore, in that eventuality, some riders, Krishna committee has suggested them that first it has to be backed by law. And then the certain other rights, they said that for the purpose which this data is being collected, the collecting authority must ensure that data is used for the purpose for which it is collected. And it has to be a rationality, directly rational with the object they want to achieve. But what had happened in our so far as this the professors have already pointed out these issues. It has come up in Kerala and many other places. The state also, Rajasthan and Karnataka, all these states, what they have done, Haryana, they have issued, publicized, put in a press, published in the press, disclosing the person, those who are affected, knowingly well that this disease is a stigmatic one. Even it has gone to the extent, I don't know why. I'm still unable to understand this concept. Why this hype was created wherein a disease, an infected person is not being touched by his own son, daughters and all, and is being kept away from them, despite the fact there is a preventive measures also. But then the hype was created. Ultimately, as a consequence thereof, what had happened was that this disease have become as an stigmatic one. And in that stigmatic scenario, if you put someone, supposingly you have developed that application, now all countries, all countries, in order to curb this disease, they have now we are living in a digital world. It's very difficult to protect our the hard and right to privacy. But the state government, while protecting this right, suppose collecting this data, you must also be aware that how much good the balance is there. Hobson's choice is there. There's no Hobson's choice. You have to prefer which way you have to go. You have collected, but then it was misused by placing it on the public domain and ostracizing such people by the neighbors itself. See, in Delhi, what is happening is that if a person is pointed out to be infected by this disease, the entire society is keeping away. He is being considered as an untouchable. Nobody is coming apart from the way the agony is suffering. Even those people, those who are in isolation or those who are in quarantine, they are being treated as an untouchable. So in that scenario, my humble the summation would be that right of privacy is to be protected, balance, while striking a balance between the pandemics and the right to privacy. It has to be protected because the disease as such, that this is as good as any other influenza virus. There are so many viruses. You have Nazla, supposedly sinusitis, there's no medicine till date. Suppose you the chronic cold, you're suffering from chronic cold, there's no medicine for it. People say that you go keep on running and always keep your nose clean. So only that is a solution. So whenever this kind of disease which doesn't have immediate medicine, as on date, of course, the various countries, they are trying their best to find out some vaccine so that this disease can be cured by the medicine. But then supposingly tomorrow the medicine is not the effective, the way of curbing this the disease, then in that eventuality you can't treat people in this manner. So therefore, now it becomes more important for the government, whether it's a state government, it's a central government, it's a government of India, it's a government of any other country, wherever this the disease is creating a havoc in the minds of people, that this minimum right of privacy has to be protected, and minimum right of privacy, how it can be protected, since there is no law as such, as Parliament has not made any law. But then the Sri Krishna Committee, which they have suggested, that you have to be very specific that for this purpose, we have collected this data, and these data would be used only for that particular purpose, nothing else. Secondly, the law backing has to come up in immediate future. Nobody knows that how long this disease is going to, spread in this country or going to survive. Third thing, which I say that the Krishna Committee itself has suggested, that immediately as soon as the person, supposedly a person who is infected and his data is has already been collected by the state, the moment he recovers from disease, immediately the data has to be destroyed. It must be deleted, destroyed. Otherwise, it will create havoc to that family. for that purpose. So, in my submission, of course, there are the Supreme Court has come up. This right to protection is to be protected. They have said that it's not a fundamental right, but it has got all trapping of a fundamental right because it's an essential component of a fundamental right, which is given in Part 3 of the Constitution with Article 14 to 18, 19, 21, and therefore it has to be protected. Now, what had happened thereafter the Puttaswamy judgment? There has been a test. A test has already been there. Though the Puttaswamy did not say that right to privacy is an absolute right. So therefore, what they put a rider or disproportionality or proportionality. That was tested in various judgments, like the professor has already said, Navtej Singh Johar, under which Article 377, the carnal intercourse against against the consensus that was challenged against the criminalization of that particular section on a consensual basis of two adults. That was cause, and court has said this is unconstitutional. Second test, which was Puttaswamy was done, was in this the Puttaswamy second itself, Aadhaar case, as professor has said, that they prominently they put more emphasis on proportionality. They said it should not be disproportionate. Third was in the Joseph Shine case in Kerala. Joseph Shine's case also, that Article 497, Section 497 IPC along with the 182 CRPC, that was also adultery. It was quashed. Third case thereafter was that Indian young lawyers case, Sabarimala issue. Sabarimala also, they said a woman with the age from 10 to 50 years, she cannot be prevented from going to the Sabarimala on the basis of her gender biases. That was tested. And again, this Vineet Kumar's case at CBI, Vineet Kumar and CBI case, again it was tested. So therefore, thereafter, the consistently after Puttaswamy's cases, these all cases are tested. And in these cases, this right to privacy was considered to be a fundamental right. A constitutional right, though constitutional right, akin to fundamental right, and it has to be given that the protection of a constitutional, of a fundamental right, and right of privacy. A person should not be deprived from his right of privacy. Now, in my humble submission, this right has now been, time and again it was found that it was, as I have said in the beginning itself, that since we are living in a highly materialistic world, moral ethics, one thing would have been when a right, certain right, which is very precious right, valuable right to a person, has not been prevented from being misused by law, then another question would have been the moral value should have been there. But in this materialistic world, if there is no moral ethics, that supposing this, you collected data, use it for other purpose than the purpose for which it is collected, in that eventuality, now it has become very imperative. Now it has become imperative that with a certain backing of the legal framework, the law has to be pronounced to protect this right. And of course, it's in the parliament. Parliament has just passed this bill, PDP, Personal Data Protection Bill 2019 is already there. But then it has never come into it was never converted into an act till date. So in my submission, I'll say that this valuable right in future, whosoever may be in governance, must protect through a legal backing. Law must back it. Otherwise, in the world which we are staying, we are living in this, it is going to be misused. It is going to be misused for personal purposes. I know that here in Delhi also, what they do is that these call center people, they keep on buying your telephone number, your details from someone else. Supposedly they go to your bank, the officer where your account is there, they'll get all the details, they pay money to them, they collect your data and then keep on calling you every day. That menace is already there of the data being sold out for other purposes than the purpose which the data has been collected or been deposited or been given to some authority. That's my view. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rawat sir, for sharing this views with us, and it was very informative of yours to give your opinions on this particular topic. So what we'll do is I want to inform the audience that the feedback link has been posted in the chat box. They can fill up the feedback form now. So what we'll do is we'll start with the question answer session now. I would be putting up the first question, and then Prateek Dwivedi sir will take over. So my first question, my question is for KC Joshi sir, and it's a long question. It comes in a form of a story, so I would rather ask him to answer the question. So what happened during 1930s and 40s in London? A small epidemic struck. So when this epidemic struck, the government administrator came running to Winston Churchill, and he asked to Winston Churchill that we should stop the governance option and we should stop the offices to work for now because the epidemic is spreading. When the Churchill's first question was, are the courts open or not? And the secretary replied yes. And this short story in itself can show us what an important role courts play when this sort of crisis erupts upon us. So my question to KC Joshi sir is, what is the role that you see Supreme Court and High Court can play during this times to implement the rights of the citizens in certain way? Thank you.
This is an important question. In fact, as the crisis started abruptly, and the magnitude of this crisis has told you already, there was no competent legal instrument consisting of the requirements of the day. The government only, whatever the government took, under the clock of, and that was taken. The first is that a proposal legislation was there in 2017, Public Health Prevention, Control, and Management of Bioterrorism and Child Bill. But it was never tabled in the. I think the first thing is that there should be a law. Because if you look to the rules of the court, as Senior State has said, there's rulings of different courts, including high courts. This will come, I think, under the category of informational privacy. And informational privacy has been dealt with by Justice Cole in this Puttwami case. And it has also been said that proportional, this is a facet. Informational privacy is a facet of right to privacy. And right to privacy has been elevated to the rank of a fundamental right. Now, well, as we all know that all these fundamental rights are subject to reasonable restrictions. Now, the court will look, and in fact, courts are not living in ivory towers now, as used to be earlier. Therefore, court will look to the situation. What happens at the country? What is the country facing? What this law is meant for whom? It is, of course, the abuse of authority is there if a person gets authority, and it is necessary because as you recently might be doing, this is a case of mass killing of 8 police personnel has been killed in Kanpur. Now, it was some connivance as reported in some newspapers. The connivance of the departmental persons. Therefore, when the government functions, there are agencies, there are officers, authorities, which are bound to abuse their power. But there should be a law. And the Supreme Court has already said that there must be a clear law, and the United Nations bodies concerned with human rights, what we call fundamental rights, have also laid down the emphasis that every institution has to be. Countries facing number of problems this defense of the border, and then there are natural calamities are there, and then unemployment is there, and economic recess is there, and therefore the government is doing honestly for the stable for the public, and therefore first need I think is the requirement of registration. But till the time law is made, the court will look the all circumstances, and the rights, fundamental rights are subject to reasonable restrictions as laid down in Article 19(6) of the Constitution. And which is okay, strong back. The Supreme Court has said we cannot. This is said what is reasonable restriction. A reasonable restriction will depend upon the various factors, circumstances, and therefore looking to the totality of the circumstances of the country, I think the court will look into it whether a particular this action of the executive or this government was reasonable, covered by, or not, is to be protected or not. I think that should be done. But my this emphasis would be there should be a clear law which laid down, because information technology has come, as advocate, senior advocate has also told us. I also received a number of calls. I don't know from where they know my name. They say, "Oh, your
sound is."
Sound is missing.
Sound is not there, sir.
I think there was a
Small problem because of
connection.
at the moment, there is a community, this community of this disease, this COVID-19. And if the government has the immediate select information because of the intention, the court will look to the intention of the government. If somebody is doing some wrong thing, then separately action can be dealt, action can be taken against him. But there should be a law that is comprising all this, including all these situations, because this is bound to be in the future also. I think that is the only thing the court will look the reasonableness of restriction and the totality of the circumstances prevailing at the moment the case is filed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joshi, for clearing up what is the
Now, once again,
Sound problem is there.
problem is there.
I hope I am audible right now.
Yes, sir, you are.
Pratik sir, kindly take for the question answer section.
Yes, sir.
That will be
Good
very
afternoon,
helpful.
everyone. The question I have found out is from one of our participants. It is raised to Mr. Sir. The question says that shouldn't we already have an ordinance or a legislation to define the proportionality and to ensure that the data is destroyed in a proper time bound manner? Don't you think already there should be a legislation for this purpose or an ordinance to ensure the?
That is what I'm saying, that what it happened was the government was also sincere, because this issue has been coming up time and again, and it was seized by the court. Various courts were also seized with the matter, but there was no backup of a legislative framework was not there. There was no law as such. So therefore, the government has appointed Honorable Justice Sri Krishna, retired Supreme Court judge. A committee was constituted under his chairmanship, and he was asked to make a comprehensive report with this regard. how this particular issue, right to privacy, is to be given as a legal framework. What are the supposedly restriction or regulating the criteria? Whatever they would suggest, the government will come up that kind of legislation. In this, Sri Krishna, while submitting its report, has given certain guidelines that how these misuse of this data, which is collected from the citizens or the people from the country, how it is to be regulated. Regulated in the sense the check and balances has to be there with a legal framework. So they have suggested that first you frame a law. Then in law, it has to be made categorical for what purpose this data is being collected. Or if this data is collected for certain purposes, the government must ensure that the data for the purpose which it is collected has to be used only for that purpose, and thereafter it has to be destroyed. So these guidelines are already there in the report. This was tabled, it is in a Personal Data Protection Act bill 2019, but this bill has not converted into act as such till date. So therefore, the comprehensive report of a retired Supreme Court judge is already with the government, and the rider, the regulatory measure which the committee has suggested are already there in that kind of situation. What at the most one can do when there is a health emergency, the data is essential for larger good, for the public interest. You have to collect this data in order to prevent a disease. So therefore, that is also essential. Now this options choice, you have to have a balance. Either you have this and then regulate. It must not be used. That is the only way out in this. Absolutely, you can't say that the government can't take the data, because supposing this pandemic situation, like emergency, the situation we are facing today, the whole world is facing today, if that kind of situation comes, and in larger good, if you bring some certain legislation and say that absolutely banned, you can't collect data, but because of, in order to protect the right of privacy of a citizen, so that is not possible. So therefore, a midway was suggested by the committee itself, after having gone through the detail of the all judgments, the view of the courts, view of the public, then they have come up with this suggestion. It has yet to become a law. So that's why. That's what I've said.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Rawat, sir. Now, my next question is from Dr. Avasthi, sir. That is the police handling of this, the people during this pandemic is covered under the reasonable restrictions, all the Epidemic Act, all the NDMA Act, National Disaster Management Act. Sir, is it not excess of the reasonable restrictions or the reasonable clause or the proportionate clause, the police handling of people?
Can you listen me?
Yes, sir, I can.
The police handling is simply deplorable with all the possible words. Those we have seen in various TV programs and newspaper reports, they do not know. In fact, I think they were compared by the authorities to deal in such a manner. It cannot be justified by any angle. Even in the days of pandemic, it never authorizes anybody, whether it is police or doctors or any these warriors, to act in such manners. Some policemen have definitely done a lot. I'm not blaming each and every policeman, but some policemen have exceeded their limits, have done a deplorable job by inflicting punishment and by beating them with their cane and all that, and defaming on the high roads. And I have seen in many cases young people were met murga and all that. This is not at all permissible under our polity, under our constitution, under our fundamental rights domain. So I just don't approve any such action. And not only I, but various TV groups and various media groups, they have also condemned them, and people have also condemned them. So there is no legitimacy behind that. There is no legal provision behind that, and no legal background to them. Police force is necessary, and it's a commendable job also. Even in the days of number of police personnel have died serving the mankind, serving the Indian citizens, and we pray Almighty to give them peace in the. But these actions, which this candidate is asking, is most deplorable and is not justified by any angle.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Awasthi sir.
What is
Now
happening?
the next question is, sir, please go ahead.
This is what is happening. Professors are right. What they are doing under the National Disaster Management Act 2005, the executive authority issues certain executive order, and this police corps, they implement in excess. There's no law backing. It's a implementation part, the wrong implementation of the executive order passed by the executive authority under the National Disaster Management Act. Because they जो निकालते हैं ना, only उसी पे निकालते हैं. There's no law.
So how can the abuse, the excess done by the police can be prevented? Sir, don't you think they should be trained for this purpose also?
They are for that purpose. They are trained, but they are misusing them, and it is very difficult. And
that's what I said. Now we are living in a highly immoral, ethical world. तो है नहीं आज के दिन तो money transaction, so many other things are there.
This is what is happening. They are not allowed, and they are not allowed by their superiors also. They are never allowed by
the time and again you come across many kind of situation where money, paisa, they are taking money. Even if you are entitled for quarantine, they'll say go home. If you are in isolation, they go home. If you don't pay money, then you put in the institutional quarantine. So that kind of excesses are there. Executive orders are there. The government must ensure that their executive orders are being complied with by the authority, executing authority, in an appropriate manner. That
in its letter and spirit.
Yes, that's the duty of the government.
The spirit is missing. They must understand what is the spirit of the law.
Yeah.
And when they kill, and that too, if you do something with a well-off person, it may be a different thing. But what you are doing with these migrant laborers, those who don't have even any food for the evening, and those are having their kids in their arms.
It's a society as a whole has become so much callous. Now a person 10 days he is walking all the way 900 kilometer, 800 kilometer, and you start beating him. That humanitarian approach is not that lacking,
Condemnable, highly condemnable. That is all.
Mr. Joshi has said, power corrupt the man, absolute power the corrupt man, absolute means this only. If you are given a little bit power, you start, misusing it. So that's a corruption, He corrupt because of this power.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Now the last question for the evening is posed to Dr. Joshi. The question is, does the power of inspection mentioned under section 2, subsection 2, clause B in the Epidemic Diseases Act 1897 fall under the reasonable restriction? And what is the scope of such inspection?
I think you should first read out that section so that we may know what is the exact wording of that section.
Epidemic Act 97.
The section says, in particular and without prejudice. This is the subsection 2. It says, in particular and without prejudice to the generality of the foregoing provisions, the state government may take measures and prescribe regulations for B, the inspection of persons traveling by railway or otherwise, and the segregation in hospital, temporary accommodation or otherwise of persons suspected by the inspecting officers of being infected with any such disease. So the inspection of persons traveling by railway or otherwise, that is the provision under question. That that it is does it fall under reasonable restriction? The participant has raised a question on the reasonability of this legislation, this provision.
मुझसे नहीं है।
Sir, are you able to hear?
I am able to
Sir,
hear Professor Joshi.
Sir, what happened was there was a small disconnection in the when the Prateek sir was asking the question to Professor Joshi.
I will repeat the question.
I would just give a brief summary of the question so that Professor Joshi is able to get the question.
Is the power of inspection mentioned under subsection 2 under section 2 subsection 2 clause B under in the Epidemic Diseases Act 1897 fall under the reasonable restriction, and what is the scope of such inspection? And I would read the section for you. In particular and without prejudice to the generality of foregoing provisions, the state government may take measures and prescribe regulations for the inspection of persons traveling by railway or otherwise. So is this inspection means like covered under reasonable restriction or not? The participant wants to know.
Yes.
You know, you put anything on the this statute book doesn't mean that is all right. Everything is to be subject to judicial review, and whatever the government has written, that is not final. All restrictions should be reasonable and reasonable in view of the circumstances of the case and the situation. And as I told you earlier, the Supreme Court long back has said, because a question was raised, the Article 19 clause 6 only says that these rights are subject to reasonable restrictions made by law. Because the reasonable restrictions may issued by the government, by the executive cannot be reasonable even if they say so. It is only the requirement is that the reasonable restrictions should be imposed through law. And the reasonableness of the law is to be done by the court. And it will differ from case to case. And what is reasonable or not, that will be decided by the court, not by the executive. And therefore, they simply by saying that reasonable is not there. Because, you know, even when they said that this Supreme Court itself said that this right to life or this rule of law is abrogated during emergency, but ultimately you have to change it, because you cannot say there are certain established norms, and those norms, those fundamentals cannot be changed. Therefore, any action, even incorporated in the law, even declared by the law, it is reasonable, is not reasonable, it is subject to judicial review, and the court will decide whether it is reasonable or not.
Yes, sir. That would be all the questions. That's all from the questions point of view. And now I will give over the stage to Abhimanyu sir for the further conduction.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prateek sir. Thank you all the speakers on the behalf of Vasudev Law College. It was a very informative session, and we got an opportunity to learn from the best. And I also thank all the audience for attending this session. It was a very informative session, and I hope the people were able to get what they wanted to get from the particular session. I'm sorry that we are not able to answer. We are not able to put up all the questions to the speakers. Because we are with a limited time. But we'll make sure that the next time all the queries are answered in a certain way. I would also inform the audience that the feedback form has been updated inside the into the chat box. They can fill the feedback form. And this is the first webinar in the series of webinars that we will be presenting. So kindly wait for the next few webinars that will be coming your way. I thank all the speakers once again.
We hope all the best for your institution. Keep it up.
Yes.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Just for the organizers and the college itself.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you, audience, for attending the session once again. This is the first one in the way, and we'll be presenting you with more informative sessions in the coming time. Thank you, everyone.